What's up, guys? It's Alex at Tailwater Fly Shop. Today we're going to talk about what saltwater fly fishing really is, okay? And for those of you that maybe live in the conventional world, we're going to talk about the similarities between sight fishing with a conventional spinning rod, but we're also going to talk about the differences. But here's the one thing I want to stress to you. It's not that scary to start fly fishing in saltwater. All right, so the first thing we'll talk about is equipment, okay? Both of these setups have rods, both of these setups have reels, and both these setups have a lure. Now, the rods, they look pretty similar. The reels start to look a little bit different, but the lures, or fly, if you will, look pretty similar. And I think the applications for these things are different. So when we talk about the equipment, all right, on a spin rod, you have a spinning reel, okay? This happens to be one of the OG Shimano Sustains, all right? This is a St. Croix Avid inshore. This is a 7-foot medium light and a 3,000 size spinning reel, okay? This is paired up with 8-pound braid down to an 1/8 ounce jig head and a little 3-inch paddle tail, okay? So that's the rundown of this, all right? So keep that in mind. Rundown of the fly rod, okay? We have a Tibor Signature Series 7/8. We have a G Loomis NRX 8-weight. We have 8-weight fly line. Yes, not 8-pound fly line, 8-weight fly line. Okay, we'll talk about that too in a second. And we have a little 3-inch bait fish fly. Okay, you guys can see that. And so 8-weight fly rod, 8-weight fly reel, 8-weight fly line, down to, you know, a leader and a fly is going to be equivalent in the saltwater fly reel world to this 7-foot medium light with a 3,000 size spinning reel, okay? So these are relatively compatible for the size fish that you're gonna be using, for the application that it's for. All right, so another difference to talk about. This spinning reel holds, like I said, about 200 to 250 yards of braided line, and you can cast probably close to half of it. Where the fly line is only 100 feet, okay? So the maximum distance you could possibly cast this thing is 100 feet. But nobody really is able to fish at 100 feet, okay? There's very, very few scenarios to where casting 100 feet is gonna be called for and useful. Most of the time you're gonna move closer, but just something to mention. This fly line is only 100 feet long. So where we make up for the lack of length, especially if we hook a big fish that goes on a big run, it's not going to only be 100 feet of line that we have to play with. We have something, and you can see it's the blue in the spool here, called backing, and it's basically like a braided line. And what that does is it fills the spool for us, but also allows us to let fish have a longer run and not only be able to fish 100 feet. All right, so one of the other things to talk about is the actual like rod, okay? So in saltwater fly fishing, 90 to 95% of the setups and the rods that you're going to want to purchase or are being used out there are 9 feet in length, okay? Most of them are 9 feet in length, 4 pieces. Now there's some companies that have other options. There's some that have a 2-piece option. There's some that have some shorter options, but the majority of the stuff that you're going to do, okay? I have way too many fly setups, but almost all of them are, and especially in the lower weights, are 9 feet long, where you make up your difference in the line, okay? The line has, I can make an hour-long video just talking about fly line, okay? But the line is where your application is going to kind of be differentiated, okay? Now, on the spinning setup, there's so many different options, okay? There's 7-footers, there's 6'9", there's 6'8", there's 7'10", there's 7'11", there's 8-footers, and they all could be used for different things. And one of the biggest things that obviously on the spin side for is a longer rod is going to cast further. Where on the fly setup, you're not always trying to worry about distance with the fly rod because you're having to get close to the fish anyways, and there's only 100 feet of fly line. On the spin side though, there are a lot more options when it comes to length, when it comes to action, when it comes to power, that are going to be able to do what you need them to do. Here's the biggest difference. Can I fish for the exact same fish with both of these setups? Absolutely. If I see a snook laid up in the mangroves, if I see a redfish cruising an edge, I can throw this to that fish, or I can throw this to that fish. But here's what the differences are, okay? All the weight in the spinning setup when you're casting is the lure, right? The line itself weighs relatively nothing. You couldn't cast something that weighs nothing on this line with this setup. With the fly rod, the fly is what weighs relatively nothing. Yes, there's some flies that are weighted, but no flies are weighted enough that you could throw it with one of these setups. So what is weighted? What do you need to weight the rod, to load the rod so you can cast this fly? Well, it's the fly line. Okay, the fly line is what's weighted, and this line is weighted to be paired with the rod of a certain size. So an 8-weight fly line, 8-weight fly rod. Reel, that's where it can be a little different. This reel is for anything from 7-weight and 8-weight, but same thing with a spin rod or spin reel and rod, how different sizes can really match up with different things. And when I talk about the similarities between saltwater conventional spin fishing and fly fishing, I'm strictly talking about sight fishing and artificial fishing, okay? I'm not talking about live bait, okay? Think of it this way. Live bait's like hunting with a gun, okay? You can, you don't have to have a great shot. You can be really far away from the fish. You don't really even have to see it. It's getting called in and, it's a gun. Think about the spinning rod, okay? This is like hunting with a crossbow, okay? I can cast this a little bit further than I can the fly rod, okay, but I still have to be precise. Still not easy, still not like live bait, hunting with a gun. Where fishing with a fly rod in saltwater is kind of just like bow hunting. You have to get a lot closer to the fish. You really should be seeing the fish, okay? Blind casting in saltwater isn't really that enjoyable, especially here on the flats, because we're fishing in 10 inches of water, so if you don't see the fish, there's probably not a fish there. But these two things have many more similarities, I think, than a lot of people think. And for me personally, I grew up fishing something that looked like this. And now, most of my fishing is done with something like this. Same fish, same places, same types of applications. So let's talk about advantages and disadvantages to either one, okay? A lot of people would say, well, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage with a fly reel over a spin reel. Okay, I agree in some places, I disagree in others, all right? So spinning reel, let's talk first of all. First thing, the reel, okay? When you turn this handle on this reel, this spool turns, well, I can get the exact number if I wanted to, but this spool turns and picks up, I think it spins about between 4 and 5 times that this spool is going to turn on this, okay? So for each crank, you're gonna be able to pick up line a lot quicker. Fly reel, the handle's attached to the spool, so it's a one-to-one retrieve. Second thing, you can cast this quite a bit further, okay? I can probably cast this close to, with this setup, it's a shorter rod, but I can still cast it probably close to 200 feet, I would say, between 150 and 200 feet, relatively easy depending on the lure that I have on here. But this is gonna have, hold anywhere between 200 and 300 yards of line, and I'm gonna be able to cast a lot further and cover more water, okay? Now, disadvantage to this. This is a very light setup, okay? This is an 1/8 ounce jig head with a little 3-inch paddle tail. If you throw this 6 inches in front of a redfish's face, it's gonna spook every single time. This is gonna hit the water like a piece of lead. You know why it's gonna hit the water like a piece of lead? Because it is a piece of lead, all right? And it's a pretty good sized piece of lead. It is a solid rubber body. It doesn't breathe, it doesn't that, all right? Fly, now, I have to get a lot closer to the fish, okay? So that's one of the things that maybe would be considered a disadvantage. But here is what I would say you are not at a disadvantage at all when it comes to flies. Look at this thing, okay? This is an Enrico Puglisi bait fish, okay? It's about 3 inches long. The hook is just as strong as that jig head right there. But this is made of a synthetic hair material, all right? It's breathable. It it's translucent in the water, and it will just suspend basically in the water when you cast it. And it lands like, well, it lands like a feather because it basically is a feather. And whether you tied this with this synthetic material or you tied it with actual real feathers, okay, this is going to land extremely delicate. You can land it very close to the fish. Now, you have to get closer to the fish, but I think that when you get in that 60 to 80 foot range or closer, I think that the fly rod puts you at an extreme advantage over the spin rod just because you're able to land this a lot closer. The fly kind of suspends in the water, it doesn't want to sink so fast, and there's a lot of options on how you can retrieve it. So to wrap this up, okay, I just want to make this as simple as I can possibly make it, okay? Conventional spin fishing, you have a rod, you have a reel, you have a weightless line, and you are casting a weighted lure to the fish. That's all this is for. This whole machine, this whole setup is made to cast a weighted lure at a fish on weightless line. This whole machine is designed to cast a weightless lure on a weighted line to the fish. Okay? The line is weighted, the lure is weighted. The line is weightless, the lure is weightless, okay? That is as simple as it is. It doesn't need to be made any more complicated than that, and you can make this as simple or as complicated as you want, but I would encourage you guys to look at the similarities between the two, and there's no problem, there's no shame in doing both and enjoying both of these things. All right, guys, so like the video, subscribe to the channel. Go check out some of our previous videos where we break down a little bit more in depth fly equipment, and we talk about different rods, we talk about different reels, we talk about different flies, and really, you know, you can kind of start to see the breakdown of what is fly fishing and what is the equipment that's used for fly fishing. And you can really start to see it's not as complicated as we like to do it. Also, check out on our website on tailwaterflyshop.com, our blog. We have the Tailwater Fly Shop blog, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel down below.